you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking your time to come on to the Summit series to join us and share your
Mhm.
experience.
Thank you. It's a privilege to share how we are helping our fellow men, fellow Filipinos amidst this COVID-19 situation.
Great, great. So while we're actually waiting for people to come
Mm.
on, usually they take a little while to get
Mm-hmm.
into the equipment. So let's just chat to find out how have you been doing so far since the interview that we have done about 1 year ago.
Mm.
Are you still on the 24/7 crisis line?
Yes, I am still. And basically, we have had an increase in the number of the calls because I'm happy that people are now spreading awareness of the availability of such resource. And basically, we're happy because many groups and organizations are also putting out the word. And in our own little way, we are able to help our fellow Filipinos.
That's great. That's great. So you mentioned about organizations. The callers that are calling in, are they, would you say they're more individuals or coming more from people who are stressed out working in organizations because of too much changes?
Yes, you can say that. And actually, we are working with some of the local government units. And we just finished a 2-day training, especially to help and assist our frontliners. Because, as you may be aware of, some of the most vulnerable sectors right now are our frontliners
Mm.
because of the discrimination, sadly, the discrimination that they are experiencing because people are afraid. No,
Oh,
people are afraid that these frontliners will unintentionally spread the virus when they come home or when they go in about their business.
right. It's actually quite sad in that's if that's the case. Yeah. So, wow. Yes, I think in Singapore, this was what
Mm,
originally happened at the beginning.
mm,
Till actually the government came up, and then the newspaper, paper, social media started to stand up for these frontliners because they are actually dedicating their heart and soul, and they cannot even go back. So it's really quite sad if they are actually being discriminated.
yes, that's very true. We even have this one YouTube. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's an English version. It's a letter from a frontliner wherein the frontliner is doubting, no,
Mm,
whether what they are doing for the country is even worth it because they spend time, lots of time away from their family. They cannot kiss their children and they have to work days on end just so they will be able to address the needs of the many patients.
right.
There are many patients aside from COVID, right? So it's difficult for them and they need all the help that they can get, and the least that we can do is to be able to help them in these trying times, at least to be there fully present and listen when they feel alone because it can be lonely.
Yeah.
Some frontliners, they are only able to call when it's on their lunch break or a
Mm.
short break in the afternoon because of the many patients that they have to attend to.
Right, right. So now we are approaching 6 more minutes
Mm,
to the premiere,
mm,
episode premiere. I'm just going to go ahead and start introducing you first to our audience in the stream. So today,
sure.
yeah, thank you. Today we have Ms. Jennifer Nuya. She has 12 years of corporate HR experience in reputable, global, multicultural, and matrix organization. Jennifer
Mm,
is dedicated to helping people becoming confident and effective speakers and leaders. With graduate diplomas in both strategic HR management and organizational development, she chairs the PR committee of Dasmarinas City Toastmasters Club. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for coming to join us in this session.
thank you, Janet, for the privilege of sharing my experience and background.
Right. So I think we didn't have this in the video while we're waiting for the start time.
Mm,
When we were interviewing, actually, I was quite surprised that you took a
Mm-hmm.
decision almost at the start of COVID-19 to quit
Mm-hmm.
your secure HR job to step into what you are currently doing. Could you share a little bit about why you took this particular action before we start the episode?
All right. I may not be able to share it before even our first interview that I underwent depression myself, and it was a difficult part of my life. Some people call it the dark night of the soul, and I was happy because after some time, some people have been able to help me overcome that depression. And to my mind and to my heart also, I felt that I needed to give back to the society, in my own little way. I'm not rich, but I thought, what can I do best? And some people say that I am accommodating, I'm a good listener, empathetic, and I felt okay. So this is something that I probably can leverage on. And I was just browsing the internet, and probably it's synchronicity or divine providence for those people who have Christian upbringing like me. I was I was directed to the crisis line website, and then browsing some more, I saw that they have this training for mental health first responders. And I said, why not? It is only like, if I'm not mistaken, 5 weekends. And I liked what I experienced, and I appreciated the efforts of these individuals and the whole organization in helping our countrymen in these trying times.
Right. So it's really quite interesting. I think a lot of us will go through these what we call mid-career crisis. I think after
Mm,
working for a little while, and especially when I think the purpose in life changes quite a little bit, we will it's quite amazing that you
mm,
mentioned that you were going through depression and yet
mm.
you took the step, in fact, to help others. How has it helped you actually in overcoming the depression that you had previously?
Okay, in that training also, I realized that I am an instrumental griever. That is a griever that needs to do something in order to overcome the grief or depression. So by helping others, I am able to get past my own depression, not taking too much of my time, not taking too much of my attention, and instead using that energy in helping others. And in helping others, you would be surprised when you listen to these people, you can relate to them. Sometimes they mirror back your concerns, and you are able also to gain a new perspective, and you are also able to help yourself.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's really quite amazing. I think we are approaching 1 more minute before we have to start.
Mm,
So
mm-mm,
I will definitely want to know a little bit more. Uh,
mm-mm,
to the viewers who are actually on the live stream at the moment, the video that you're going to see was actually interviewed where I interviewed Jennifer more than a month ago.
mm-mm,
So in the meantime, if you can, as you're watching actually the video, do basically key in the questions in the chat box either towards your right hand side if you're using the desktop. If it's actually using the mobile phone coming into this stream, scroll further down from the video, you should be able to see a chat box to type in your questions. So without further ado, so what I'll do is, Jennifer, I shall just hide you for a while and bring up the screen so that we can actually share the video episode.
sure.
Thank you. See you a little later.
See you.
With 12 years of corporate HR experience in reputable, global, multicultural, and matrix organizations, Jennifer is dedicated to helping people become confident and effective speakers and leaders. So I also heard that you started volunteering for COVID-19 24/7, the crisis line. What motivated you to do that?
Yes, actually, I have been a mental health advocate for a very long time. I took a 60-hour classroom training from the InTouch Community Services and also from the Mental Health First Responder Group facilitated by Dr. Arthur Ledino. He's a US-based mental health practitioner. And right now, I am trying to complete the 200 practicum hours on the line. And yes, one of the services that we offer is for our countrymen. We have this 24/7 line which they can call whenever they feel anxious, nervous, or fearful about this COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, we receive calls because unfortunately some of our countrymen are not that financially ready, and they feel that this enhanced community quarantine is not going to help in answering or settling their financial obligations. And you also know if we don't have that good working relationship, or rather relationship with our families, being cooped up in a house 24/7 can grate on anybody's nerves. I read this article on Google that in China, but it's too early to say whether it's COVID-19 that is the primary reason why there is a high incidence of divorce in China. Because, yes, because
Wow.
spouses are cooped up 24/7 in the house. So I think that some of the society is also brought on by dysfunctional family dynamics.
Right, but because it's a helpline and you cannot really handhold them all the way, there are two questions I'd like to ask. One is, what are the most common questions that come about from anxiety on the hotline? The second one is, how do you suggest that they help themselves when you're helping them through the hotline?
All right. So for question number one, what are the usual calls about? Again, that's anxiety due to not being able to fulfill their financial obligations, because here in the Philippines, some companies have this no work, no pay rule. So if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. And number two is, again, the family dynamics, because they have been together in the house 24/7 and they rub each other the wrong way. So those are the two common reasons for the calls. Now, for the question number two, how do they deal, or how do we help them deal with the COVID pandemic? Actually, we have calls asking us to give them advice. But I'd like to think that what we do is more of coaching, because we believe that if we do the decision for them, we are disempowering them. So when a caller calls in and tells me personally his or her problem and asks for advice, I tell him or her that I'm here, I'm listening, I'm here to listen to you, help you clarify your thoughts and feelings, but I'm not here to give you an advice. What I'm here is to help you make that decision for yourself. Help the caller explore all possibilities, all potentialities that are available to him or her, so that he or she can be empowered to make the decision. Because I believe that if the caller will make the decision himself or herself, then he or she will be more accountable. He or she will be more apt to follow through on the commitment that he made to himself or herself.
Right, Jennifer. Basically, because this helpline is in Philippines, right? So if it's in Singapore, same thing. If someone has difficulty financially because they are on an hourly rate, then what are the two or three crucial steps that they should guide themselves through in order to make the right kind of decisions?
The right kind of decisions, it all boils down to core values. I mean, the person must be aware of what he or she deems important for himself or herself. And also, you cannot discount the importance of a strong family system. The family should also be able to support the person, be willing to understand what is needed to do as a family so that they together can survive, not only survive rather, but also thrive in this pandemic.
Jennifer, so in this particular situation, there will be a lot of people who are earning on a day-to-day basis a daily rate. So when these callers call in and tell you that they are financially very distressed, how do you guide them and help them?
We usually do the solution focused grief therapy. We ask the person to imagine a situation where things are better. What would it look like when things were better? What it would feel like when things are better? And when the person is able to imagine, able to conceive how it would look, how it would feel when things were better, you could feel that there's a certain lightheartedness. And one of the most recent calls that I received, the person was already suicidal because of one incident that is similar to that. And I was gratified when, before we put down the phone, she was already laughing. So I could feel that in my own little way, I have been able to help one person. You know, sometimes you feel that, am I doing enough? Am I helping? But at the end of the day, when you look back at your calls and you realize you may not be able to change the whole world, but the important thing is you are able to change one life. Just one person deciding that no, not today. I will not take my own life today because there is still hope. I can still do something. I have my wits with me. I have my knowledge and the competence that I have been able to gather through years of experience. I can do this. I can carry through this situation. That makes me feel satisfied. That makes me feel happy and fulfilled. My daughter jokes actually. She said, "Are you working?" And I said, "Yes, I am working." And she asked, "Are you being paid?" "No, I'm not." "So you're not working?" And I said, "No, I'm still working. I'm just not gainfully employed." So I'm happy because it's good work. I want to think that the reason we are not being paid is because our work is priceless.
That's very, very inspiring, Jennifer. So I think in our earlier conversations, you mentioned as well, a lot of times someone, because they've been bringing money back on a monthly basis, so when they suddenly stop, there's a lot of insecurities. Can you share a little bit more from this perspective?
Yes. Actually, those interpersonal conflicts that I have mentioned, it is rooted. It all boils down to that inability to bring in the money. Some of the colors, they feel that their families no longer appreciate them because they are no longer able to bring in the money. So that makes them feel insecure. It makes them question their competence, makes them fearful also because they are breadwinners. What will happen to their family? How long will this enhanced community quarantine last? Will we be able to last before this enhanced community quarantine ends or is lifted? So when I personally ask them, what will it be? What will it look like? What will it feel like when things were better? And they are able to imagine that. Then I encourage them to think of 2 to 3 small steps that they can immediately put into action so that they can bring about that imagined or that desired outcome. It's really gratifying when they are able to make that 2 to 3 small steps so that they can stop thinking about this COVID-19, stop really mulling over this present time and the anxieties and the fears that it brings, and instead focus themselves to the future so that they can build that desired outcome. So that gives me the happiness whenever I put down the phone.
Right. Thank you so much for your sharing, Jennifer.
Hi again, Janet.
How are you?
I'm good. I recall having a call before our interview. I was thinking to myself, here I am helping another person who is thinking of financial obligations to settle, and I also have my own financial obligations to settle. And those are some of the funny times. And also being cooped up with your family 24/7. Here in the Philippines, we have been in lockdown for 45 days, so close to two
Wow.
months. And
Wow.
you can just imagine, yeah, and you can just imagine how that feeling of being confined to the four corners of your house. It was somewhat a challenge because I myself is an introvert. And for 24/7, I have people around me. So it's a challenge. But there is somewhat a balance if you are able to make an agreement with your family members. Yes, it's good to spend more time with your family that you are not able to do that while you're in corporate, but you also have to make sure that you maintain your boundaries, have sacred spaces. There will be times when, okay, not now, I have to have my at least 10-minute me time, and then you can go back to me after 10 minutes and I will be okay again. So I think that's one of the reasons why I am an effective mental health first responder, because I can also relate to the problems of our callers. And as I've said earlier, by helping others, I am also helping myself.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you mentioned, and you also mentioned. I think there was a term that you mentioned a little earlier before the episode premiere started. Was you have to practice helping other people before you can help yourself. What was the term that you actually mentioned?
Helping others before I can help my
Yeah,
yes, instrumental griever.
instrumental. So, what are the different types of the we call it grievers or people who are going through depression? What are the various different types?
Actually, there are only
Uh,
two types. But one type I cannot really recall right now. But what stuck to me during that training is, okay, so I'm an instrumental griever. That's the reason why by helping others, I am also helping myself.
mm. Then, for the other type, if let's say they are going through depression, what are the steps that they have to take to help themselves? Then,
Yes. So that's the usual thing that we do. We have the solution focus based
ah,
therapy. That is, we ask the person to imagine a desired outcome and uh, think also of 2 to 3 small steps
ah,
for doing or accomplishing the, how do you say that, the desired outcome. But actually, that SFBT works for both types of grievers. They This pandemic, we are all affected by this pandemic, but based on our temperaments, personalities, based on our backgrounds, how it will affect us will vary, and
mm,
how we journey through this pandemic will also be different. And that's the beauty of it. And that's also our challenge. That is to allow each person to have his or her own journey
Mm,
in addressing this pandemic. Because
right.
sometimes when I was starting, honestly speaking, when I was starting, sometimes I felt that there were some cases that okay, you can do that. I mean, some people have had it harder or more difficult than you are. But again, our threshold for pain, our threshold for grief are different, and we have to allow each person to really immerse themselves in the process so that they can help themselves.
Right, right. So we have a question here from Dave, um, who asks basically, he says, thank you for sharing, Jennifer. I think probably a lot of us, we will have basically family members or friends who may be going through depression. So he says, can you advise how do you recognize when someone is starting to go into depression?
All right, that will be when the person if there's a change in the behavior. If you know that the person is usually jolly,
Mhm.
then he or she becomes withdrawn, sad. Sometimes if the person doesn't want to eat, then that can be a sign of depression. What else? Now, conversely, if the person is he's always up and about, always bursting with energy, and this person becomes lethargic all of a sudden, then that can also be a sign of depression. So the key here is open communication. If you feel that the person's actions have changed, a simple "How are you? How are you coping so far?" Just a small chit chat will help a lot. And for those people who are, if you have introverted friends, even before this pandemic, we don't usually reach out to people. So my hope for our extroverted friends is to reach out. Just a simple call, message will help a long way.
Right. So actually, as a follow-up question, I would like to know would be, how do we know, as lay people who do not have training, after like trying to speak to your friends, saying hello and reaching out,
Mm.
how do you know when you need to actually start to call the helpline and approach others?
The person himself, is that what we're asking?
Like, let's say my friend, my family member, I
Mm-mm.
after reaching out and saying hello, saying
Mm-mm.
trying to connect, and you realize that maybe it's not really helping. How at which point in time, especially if it's your family member, you need to go to the helpline?
Oh, it is of utmost importance to reach out to the helpline when the person is already telling something about her harming himself, has this suicide ideation. So it needs professional help. Of course, we can help only as much, but they have to sometimes undergo professional counseling and also take some medication.
Right, right. So we have a question here
Mhm.
from Dr. Philip Mary that says one of the biggest issues at this time is people's fear of death, but they are afraid of talking about it. So, how do you handle this issue?
Okay, so just to make sure that I understand the question correctly, is we have we have another person, like a friend or a family member, who are afraid of dying because of COVID situation or COVID, but they are afraid of talking about their fears. Is that what Philip Mary is asking?
I'm not sure, he has not replied, but let's assume that you may have gotten COVID-19 and you're
All
worried
right.
about whether you die or you pass on to your family member who may have you don't want to spread it to your family member, especially if you are talking about frontline healthcare workers that you mentioned a
Mm.
little earlier. Then how do you handle this issue?
All right. I remember one. She was afraid how to explain to someone close to her that she's afraid that she might pass on the COVID virus. And that one is in isolation, self isolation, because her swab test result has not yet been released. So she's not sure whether she's positive or negative. Uh, how did I help that person? Well, I helped that person by, again, thinking, helping her think of the positive things that may happen.
In the meantime, I think Dave's answers question has been answered. So he says he will take note of Jennifer's advice and will come back. Let me see whether I can bring Jennifer back again. Ah, I think the line it's not that great, so I will wait for her to dial back in again. So while we are waiting for her, let me just show, in case you missed the beginning portion actually of this episode, don't worry. Basically, you can actually watch the replay. Just go to the Effective Asian Leadership website with the tab on leadership during crisis. Click on that page and you should be able to see all the various different episodes that we have done since I think 2 weeks ago on the 27th of April. So when you scroll down all the way, you will be able to see um, Jennifer's episode. Click on it and you will know a little bit more actually about her story as well as who she is and the helpline if you're coming in from the Philippines that you like to call. So let me just
And
hi. I
right.
think
And
that's the thing about technology, right? So sometimes when the connection is not so great, especially now where everybody is dialing in, so it gets dropped off at times. Yeah.
that's
So
very true.
okay, I think there's another question coming from Philip Mary's side. His question is a little long, so I'll just read it out. The underlying fear with COVID-19 is that we may die, but most do not talk about it. But this is the issue we need to face. How do you help people talk about this?
All right, we can start with what we read in the news, what we hear on TV. Make it as benign as possible because, again, there are many possibilities that we have, and one possibility is death. For those with people who have had a loved one die before, probably we can use that as a springboard for a discussion. Like, can you remember a time when, like, Aunt Betty or grandfather George left us or passed on? So how was it? And then that can help the can be a small child or a teenager process that emotions. How was it? How was he able to cope with the idea of someone passing on? And that helps because you have the same
Hey, I'm still there.
strengths and the resources to overcome that bereavement phase. And you can again use the same skills, strengths, and resources to overcome if someone passes on with COVID-19.
So
Mm-mm.
now the other thing is I would like to ask you would be obviously, because I think you took this up as part of your 200 hours to fulfill.
Mm.
From a career perspective, you mentioned that you were a little lost and then you went into depression. You decided to help people. What are your plans? How are you preparing yourself to tap on the opportunities or prepare yourself as to the aftermath of this particular crisis?
All right. I mentioned before that I'm an HR professional, right?
Yes.
And so, coming from an HR perspective, I researched on the emerging or the work for and this for the work in the future. And with this COVID-19, one of the emerging work that we are looking into is the increase for the need in mental health professionals. So I believe that the marriage of the three disciplines, organization development, HR, and also mental health rather, will be able to help me in helping more people. So OD is like the umbrella, HR is the caring part because we are supposed to be people person, and mental health because mens sana in mens sano, a healthy mind in a healthy body. It
Mm.
all boils down to having a mentally um, uh, in a good mental health before you can be successful in any facet of your life.
Right.
That's for
It,
me. That's
yeah.
only for me.
It's interesting though, because I think we had probably this conversation previously where I think, especially in Asia, the subject of mental health is a little taboo, especially when you look at it from the organization perspective. If a person needs to do well, they should not be seen to be not
Mm,
so uh, mentally resilient, mental agility.
yeah.
These are all the words that come in. So, how
Mm-hmm.
do you see the organizations actually bringing this portion of mental health in without affecting what we call the taboo portion, or allowing people to share more and speak more about it?
All right. In 2017, the Philippine government passed a law, the Philippine Mental Health Law, requiring the companies and organizations here to have practices and programs aligned to mental health. And because they have seen the need for such programs. And sadly, in the Philippines only, we have a ratio of mental health professionals 1 is to 10,000. So there's a
Wow.
dearth for, yes, there's a dearth for mental health professionals. And the leaders themselves, I believe, should be the ones to model the acceptance that there is and there can be mental health issues among the workers, and they should be able to model the need for help for having these mental health programs in the workplace so that someone who is having a mental health issue can just raise his or her hand and say, boss, I need to take a sick leave because I am mentally anxious because something is happening at home. I don't know how to take care of it while also thinking of my problem here in the workplace. And I know that some companies, not here in the Philippines though, but in the US, other Western companies, they are already allowing employees to take the mental health day against their sick leaves. And I remain hopeful that all other companies will also follow suit, that they will appreciate the need for such programs and practices in the workplace.
Yes, I really think so. I think especially with the current situation in COVID, the government and a lot of places in Singapore, there is actually the association who actually set up a helpline, just like
Mm-hmm.
in the Philippines, to help the healthcare workers
Mm-hmm.
who have a helpline to call. We have Philip Mary saying thank you. There are so many people who avoid talking about death, but he's glad that you are there to help people face it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Philip Mary. This is one topic that we cannot avoid anymore. We have to face up to our fear. I believe that we are only fearful of what is unknown. But once we have the knowledge about COVID-19 and all the possibilities that we can do, we will be able to overcome it, get rid
Right.
of the fear.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Now, if you need to actually contact the crisis helpline in the Philippines, just hit the show more button in the live stream page on YouTube. It's actually listed in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
numbers that are there. It's also listed on the website Effective Asian Leadership stroke page Leadership During Crisis. So that's how you can reach out to Jennifer or any of her colleagues for help. It's already 2:33 and
Mm-hmm.
we are 3 minutes past 2:30. So thank you so
Thank
much for
you,
your
Janet.
time, Jennifer. So I will end the stream here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Goodbye.
you, everyone. Have a good day.